Good morning, everyone. Millions of people snore in their sleep, but for some, it may be more than just an annoying habit. Sometimes snoring is a sign of a more dangerous sleep condition. Mandy Gaither has more on the health risks and the signs that your snoring may be something more serious.
It can be annoying and disruptive to sleep.
Snoring by itself really is not much of a problem.
But Dr. Daniel Barone says it can be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea when muscles that support soft tissues in your throat relax, narrowing or closing your airway so that breathing is temporarily cut off. People with this condition may make gasping or snorting noises while sleeping.
Sleep apnea does not result in people choking to death or dying in their sleep, but what happens is the airway is closing off, and that can trigger them to wake up, even if they're not aware of it. Essentially, you're choking throughout the night, and it's almost as if your body is fighting against itself.
Barone says that can raise blood pressure and heart rate. Over time, that takes a toll on your body and can lead to heart attack or stroke.
If you snore and you're tired, or if you snore and you have other conditions associated with sleep apnea, for example, like diabetes or hypertension, you may want to get it tested because the snoring in that case could be representative of sleep apnea.
So the snoring's waking you up?
If sleep apnea is diagnosed, a CPAP machine can be worn at night.
It's going to blow pressurized air in here, which then goes all the way down to the back of the throat, and it's going to force the airway open. The snoring will be eliminated, but more importantly, the sleep apnea will also be eliminated.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say treatment of other medical problems like congestive heart failure may also help resolve sleep apnea. A study in the Journal of Sleep Research shows just how common sleep disorders are for people hospitalized with long COVID. Half reported struggling with insomnia, and on this World Sleep Day, experts want to bring awareness to the toll on both physical and mental health. Michael George has that story.
When Priya Matthew recovered from a mild case of COVID-19 in November, she thought she was out of the woods. Then came long COVID.
At one point, I counted 23 symptoms. The most alarming ones were shortness of breath, labored breathing, heart palpitations.
One of the most crippling symptoms was insomnia.
Nothing worked. I would just lie awake in agony all night, and it felt like electric shocks going through my body from my head down to my toes.
Dr. Emmanuel During has been seeing that in sleep patients at Mount Sinai Hospital. For those with long COVID, he says insomnia is often related to pain and is resistant to treatment.
Pain which can occur at night as well, and a lot of autonomic imbalance, autonomic impairment, which is the ability of our body to control heart rate and blood pressures. That can lead to episodes of palpitation, night sweats.
Even for those without long COVID, the pandemic has robbed Americans of their beauty rest. In a 2022 survey, nearly a third said they'd experienced sleep disturbances since COVID began. That's down from 56% the year before, a phenomenon described as COVID-somnia. Priya Matthew shared her battle in a column for Axios.
When you're so sleep deprived, how does that impact your day?
I mean, I couldn't work for a month, at least. Any little task took way too much energy. Just taking a shower, I had to rest for, 3 hours after that.
Doctors say it's critical to stick to your best sleep hygiene, regular bedtimes and no screens late at night, with the hope that as the pandemic fades, we'll all get the sleep that's so essential to our health. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Doctors say it's a good idea to consult a sleep specialist because insomnia may reveal other health issues like sleep apnea, as we've already talked about. So 2 elementary schools in Coleman, Alabama now have bulletproof safe rooms that can be set up in a matter of seconds. When they're not in use, the system is just a floor-to-ceiling whiteboard that fits up against the wall. Pull the handle, and in 10 seconds, you have a safe room that locks from the inside. The area provides shelter from an active shooter and in the event of severe weather. The founder and CEO of KT Security Solutions came up with this idea after the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The 2 rapid deploy safe rooms are the first in the nation. Mississippi's health systems is still under the microscope by the feds, but the court monitor's most recent report shows some signs of improvement. Courtney Ann Jackson has some of the highlights and what the legislature is doing.
I wouldn't want people to think, oh, things are fixed. They're not. There is some of these high-end issues more things are getting in place to make them better. But that doesn't mean our system of care is responding to people's mental illness in a way that most helps them live in the community.
Care in the community is the end goal, but there was also a concern that too many people were ending up waiting in a jail cell for a bed, but not charged with a crime. Staffing was a problem, but the court monitor's most recent report notes that some beds were reopened at the state hospitals. Because of that, from December to mid-January, an average of 23 people were waiting for a hospital bed each day. 8 of those were waiting in jail, compared to the first quarter of this fiscal year, when 72 people were waiting for beds, 24 of those in jail.
There's this group that we suspect is out there and seems to be out there, where they haven't even gone through the commitment process yet, but they have a mental illness and they're ending up waiting in jail for the commitment hearing. And I don't think there's data yet on those people.
But some of that may get filled in if the governor signs off on a bill the legislature recently passed.
It requires chanceries to record not just who they admit, but who they don't admit and where they go and follow up there and after. And it also requires them to do it on a monthly basis.
It also calls on changes to the community mental health center boards to include chancery clerks and law enforcement.
This will hopefully bridge that gap. You know, the idea is to get these people treatment as quick as possible and not necessarily send them to the state hospital, because local resources are there in most regions to take care of this.
Courtney Ann Jackson, WCBI News.
The bill will also expand the court liaison program. A handful of those are around the state now, helping divert people away from the institutions and jail, but this would expand that to 50 statewide. It would also require law enforcement officers to receive mental health training. All right, it's not what you want to see when you head to the beach. Why is it there and how long will it last? We'll take a look when Good Morning returns. Some of Florida's most popular beaches could be in for a 1-2 punch of trouble, just as thousands of spring breakers visit the Sunshine State. An algae bloom known as red tide is already killing fish along the Gulf Coast, causing a big stench. Now a massive blob of seaweed that's wider than the entire U.S. is drifting across the Atlantic, and it could wash ashore in the coming weeks, creating an even bigger mess. Manuel Borges has more now from Florida.
It is as foul-smelling as it is unsightly. Sea life dead and washed ashore, essentially choked by an algae bloom known as red tide. They appear to be clean up at this beach in Naples on Florida's Gulf Coast. The smell that lingered didn't stop tourists like Melanie Coulter of Wisconsin.
When we were walking from our car here, I'm like, oh, what is that stench?
But on a bad day, red tide can have an impact on tourism, as businesses here are still recovering from Hurricane Ian last year. Logan Fitzgerald measures it by the number of beach chairs and umbrellas he rents a day.
Today there was a good amount of people out here, but Saturday wasn't too good. Like, not a lot of people were coming out to the beach.
Saturday should be a good day.
Yeah, it should be a good day, especially on spring break.
The ocean breeze carries the toxin released by the red tide algae ashore, where it can cause health problems for people, from scratchy throats to irritated eyes, all the way to difficulty breathing and asthma attacks. While it is a naturally occurring algae, this team from the water school at Florida Gulf Coast University is looking into whether pollution is making the blooms worse.
It's probably been the worst over the past 2 weeks.
Mike Parsons is a professor here.
We've had bad red tides in the past, but the big concern is now that our coastlines are more developed and there's a lot more people in Florida than there used to be, how are we affecting water quality and how is that affecting red tide?
And what do we think?
There is evidence that we are influencing red tide.
So pollution may be aggravating the problem.
It may be aggravating the problem. It definitely is not the cause of the problem, but it may be aggravating the problem.
Now, another problem looms on the horizon. A 5,000-mile-wide patchwork of seaweed clumps in the Atlantic, captured in satellite images, is making its way toward the Caribbean, Mexico, and Florida beaches. In the past, the buildup of sargassum has been so large and smelly, heavy machinery was brought in to clear it.
As that biomass degrades, it's going to release gases, things like hydrogen sulfide, which smell like rotten eggs, but it's harmful. And so you don't want to be breathing that in a lot.
would you advise against going in the water?
If you go to a stretch of beach and you see dead fish and you start getting a scratchy nose or your eyes are watering, probably not the best idea to stay there.
The potential impact of the seaweed here is still weeks away. The hope is red tide will have subsided, and all these beachgoers will have to worry about is catching a wave. For CBS Mornings, Manuel Bojorquez, Naples, Florida.
Despite the heat, one team is on ice. Their story a little later on mid-morning. All right, welcome back. People and their pets can make great traveling companions, partners in adventures. But this duo met on the streets and they have stuck together ever since.
Gas stations aren't usually a place you spend a lot of time at, unless you're Brian Love.
And I got a little car trouble down in Memphis, and I kind of landed here in Arkansas, and now I'm here.
The rapper from Wisconsin has traveled the country, not alone, and not with partners you'd expect.
I get my man here and give him a better life because the place I got him from, they wasn't treating him too good, so I figure if I got him, he'll live a life he's supposed to live.
Meet 46 Sanders. 46 from the street Love grew up on. Sanders, a reference to the Colonel.
Then I got serious and started to love him and became my real pet and a real thing.
And the clothes, well, that has everybody talking.
The man that's been getting everybody attention in town.
Pictures cost $5, money to help get his truck out of the shop and get him home.
I'm watching him. That's Sanders.
But that money isn't just for Love.
I go in every town, and when I see the low poverty areas, I make a note of it, and I go do a food drive before I leave.
So when y'all out there supporting me, just know I do give back, you know what I'm saying? Because, hey, y'all gave to me, I got to give to the next person. We keep it going.
It's also a chance to give back to places that have helped him.
My dad used to do it, and he passed away, so I figured it kind of like eased me to have a little moment like I'm still doing something for my dad, so it eased the pain for me.
You'd think someone down on their luck would focus on themselves first. Love would disagree.
I've been down so many times. I figured negativity can only make it worse.
Even though this situation isn't what he'd like to be in, he's keeping his head high.
You got a dream, go for it. I'm having down moments, but still choosing to smile.
And doing that's a lot easier with partners like these.
Shout out 46 Sanders for creating this moment, because he was the one that got the attention for me to even say the words that I'm saying today.
In Little Rock, Ian Russell, THV 11 News.
With its tropical temperatures, Kenya may not be considered a hot spot for ice hockey, but dozens of young athletes are getting creative when it comes to chasing their dreams. CBS's Ian Lee has more on that story.
The journey to ice hockey glory in Kenya begins on a rooftop, the national team swapping skates for rollerblades.
Ever since I was a kid, I was bewildered and amazed when I saw in movies guys playing a sport very fast and bumping into each other.
With an average daily temperature in the 70s, you're more likely to find ice in a glass. But that's not melting Mike Otieno's ambitions, who says, I have a dream that before I die, I must play in the NHL. But sharpening the ice lion skills takes some creativity.
Repetition is the mother of skill. We got to train.
We learn from online sites. There are online coaching tutorials.
Only a few dozen people play in the country of 54 million. The only ice rink is in a 5-star hotel. And their coach comes from Canada.
When I coach here, I realize the kids pick it up faster. They're a little bit hungrier. They want to succeed. They want to try this new sport.
And opponents learn quickly not to underestimate them.
They're fast, right? So training at elevation here in Nairobi really goes to show because their lungs and their legs are constant.
The team now plans to join the International Ice Hockey Federation, aiming to one day give Kenya its own Miracle on Ice. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Players have already faced off in friendly matches with teams from the U.S. and are planning a trip to America this summer. All right, when most college basketball fans wear the love of their game on their sleeve, they do so metaphorically. When Brian Farrell wears his love on March Madness on his sleeve, he does so in a very literal fashion.
He woke up like a kid on Christmas morning.
Thursday night, dozens of fans gathered at Freemore Tavern just outside of Uptown off Moorhead Street to celebrate the first day of March Madness. And for this group of friends, it means more than just a couple games.
All right, so in my mind, March Madness should be
a national holiday.
Brian Farrell and crew gathered together every March for the first day of the tournament. A few years ago, he decided something was missing from the festivities.
And I decided, why not dress it up a little bit?
And he took the dress it up part very literally.
You take your bracket and you put it on a jacket, and you have, what do you have?
You have the bracket jacket, and yes, it is exactly what it sounds like.
So we'll tell you who it's not a prize for, my wife.
Every year, Farrell heads to a local thrift store to find the new canvas for the year's tournament.
COVID. Had to make my own a home.
So when you go to the thrift store, they don't, it's off the rack, right?
Yeah.
So might be a little short in the arms. But listen, I can still move. We got it. We're good.
A tradition a decade in the making, filling up the closet one bracket jacket at a time.
I've kept every single one, and this is 10 or 11, and every year they're in the closet.
So it doesn't bother you that you have 10 of those hanging up in your closet right now. That's just part of the deal.
We have separate closets.
A fun and quirky add-on to the March Madness celebration, sure, but beyond that, the jacket represents a yearly commitment to make time to eat some wings and watch some hoops with friends.
Life gets busy at our age, so people have kids and they get married, and it means a whole lot for us to be able to come together.
Whether it's on paper or on a jacket, for this group, the bracket is less about how you fill it out and more about who you fill it out with.
Other than that, there's your brackets. That's it, my friends. May the odds be ever in your favor,
All right, coming up, she makes science fun. We'll meet this professor when we come back. Now a story about a professor with a creative approach to closing the gender gap in science. Women make up about half of the U.S. population, but earn only a quarter of bachelor's degrees in physics. For Women's History Month, Jamie Wax traveled to Texas to meet someone who is working to change that by sharing the joy of science.
Ready, set, go!
The way Dr. Tatiana Yerokimova sees it, physics is real-world magic.
Yeah, this is awesome! Yeah!
And with a little training,
All right, next!
anyone can become a real-world magician.
Will the potato drop? Let's check.
Videos of her experiments have ignited people's curiosity online, racking up tens of millions of views over the last 2 years.
You cannot explain much in these short clips, but you can get people interested.
It's a spark. It may start a fire.
You can inspire, you get this spark. I will tell you, we filmed our demonstrations, and I never ever put myself there. I speak funny. What's the point?
People love the way you speak.
What's the point? No, I never wanted to be in this videos. Students wrote the scenarios. Students were thinking how to explain it. Students start in this video showing these demonstrations.
She always wants everything to be like a celebration of science.
We met 3 of Yerokimova's former students, 2 of whom work in the world of physics today. They all share a special connection to the woman they affectionately call Dr. Tatiana.
You walk into Dr. Tatiana's classroom and you can tell she wants you to be there. And not only that, she wants to be there. She cares and she wants you to learn, and that makes you want to learn.
She never makes you feel like you have to listen, I know everything. She wants to hear everything that you have to say, so that way you can create something together.
Dr. Tatiana's own story starts thousands of miles away, about 6 hours northeast of Moscow, before the breakup of the Soviet Union. She was raised by 2 physicists, and she married, you guessed it, a physicist. In 1999, she and her husband Alexei moved to College Station, Texas, where they both teach today.
Was it just complete culture shock, or did you know you were home?
Of course, I didn't feel home, but you make it home.
Pressure from inside, just difference in pressure!
Over the last 20 years, that home has sounded a lot like this. When she isn't teaching, Dr. Tatiana is doing outreach, blowing the minds of future scientists.
And let me run!
Unexpected and very excited.
You were part of this study of 10,000 students, and physicists, and people in sciences. And the result was that Men are no better acclimated towards this than women.
Over 10 years, there were no consistent difference between a male and female performance on this exam scores. I felt that this is a very important message for my students.
She's one of my role models, and I hope
Students like Afia Danani, who came to A&M after seeing Dr. Tatiana's videos.
watching Dr. Tatiana do the experiments online, especially since she was a female leader, was more inspiring for me to even go into physics.
My very first semester, I wasn't at class that morning, and she looked at the people that were sitting next to me. She was like, "Where is Callie? Like, you need to call her right now and make sure that she's okay." I just overslept past my alarm. I was like, wow, like she knows when, she notices when you're not there.
What would you want her to know about what she's done for you?
Everything that she did to push me throughout my undergrad, I've sort of learned how to do that for myself. So I can be my own advocate now because of her.
What would you like to do that you haven't done?
To start new programs.
To keep, to just not stop.
So not stop, no, not stop.
Wrap things up. All right, be sure you stay connected with us. We love to hear from you. We will see you back here next time. Have a great day.